It is 3:46. I'll call the meeting to order. I will start with a checklist to ensure the meetings are compliant with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As chair of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Finance Committee, I find that due to the state of the emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. Utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting, all members of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Finance Subcommittee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number: 646-558-8656. The meeting ID is 954-4472-4808. Or by clicking on the following website address. YouTube is www.youtube.com/c/SRSD meeting videos, all one word. Letter B, providing public notice of the necessary information for assessing the meeting. Previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. It's also been provided on the website of the Sanborn Regional School District, www.sau17.net. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 978-482-7394 or email at helpdesk@sau17.net. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. All votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by a roll call vote. Start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anybody in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Jim, why don't you go ahead?
Yep. So I'm in a room in my house. There's nobody in the room with me.
Yeah, I'm in the room in my house. My wife is in the living room, but she can hear us.
And Matt.
I'm at the SAU office, and I'm in my office at the SAU, and I'm alone, but someone's going to come in and then walk back out.
Okay. Jamie Fitzpatrick, I'm in my home office. I'm alone. So why don't we get started? The first thing I'd like to do is welcome Pete Broderick. Pete is a newly appointed member of the Finance Subcommittee and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the committee. So thank you, Pete.
Oh, you're welcome.
Board. And let me find now the agenda. One of these bloody things.
Can I put it up on the screen?
Yeah, just as I got it. The revolving trust. Why don't you go ahead, Matt, pull the revolving trust up on the screen for us?
Sure. Yep. Oops, that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not it.
Okay. Do you see the revolving trust?
I do.
Trust.
Okay. July 31st, 2020.
Right. So these are the same that were handed out in the Facilities Committee last week. And so the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund as of July 31st is $241,088.26. And I'm going to move on down. The Capital Improvement and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund as of the same date is $172,969.14. And then if I scroll down further, the unanticipated educational expenses Capital Reserve Fund is $75,000 $164.05. Now, an update is later on today, I'm going to be sending out the manifest for approval. And on there is going to be a $75,000 payment for into the unanticipated educational expenses, and then a $50,000 payment into the capital improvement and maintenance capital reserve fund.
So those will be net additive to the numbers that we're seeing here now.
Yes.
So the only changes we're seeing here now is really interest accruals from the last time that we reviewed them, and then we'll see the postings on the warrant article increases in the August numbers, or excuse me, in the
September
end of month numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Matt, can you update us on the facilities use balance?
Okay, the accounting system hasn't rolled over the beginning balance into the current year, so I do not have any numbers for the facility use. I'm going to have those for the September 15th board meeting, as well as the numbers for the state reporting. As of today, we have billed out 3 months worth of rent to SLC, and they've paid 2 months. The third month is still current, and I probably expect that in the next 5 days.
So when we last had a report on the facilities reserve fund, it was up over 100,000. Do you have any idea where it is now?
Yeah, let me stop sharing this so I can probably do an estimated number.
Okay.
Quickly. I have to go into a prior meeting. Just to let everyone know, I can't wait for the new accounting system to come on board.
Have you started using it yet, or?
No, it's going to go live July 1st of next year.
Oh,
So the date that I have, the last one that I have is May 31st, and that had $192,366 in it. So if I add, let's see,
did you say 192?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then if I add 11,666 to it for 3 months, it should be $227,000.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Can we go on to the budget request, Matt? I believe you have a couple of budget requests for us.
Yeah. I'm going to share the screen again.
Yes, please.
And then, all right. Do you see the agenda?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Now, the first budget request is it's right at the threshold where I need to ask for permission of the finance committee, but it's asking to move $10,000 here. Let me zoom in a little more so you can see it better. It's asking to transfer $10,000 out of replacement equipment to supplies, and it's just a change in it. We're trying to recover from an error that was made.
Right pocket, left pocket, though, right?
Yes, exactly. It's still within athletics.
I move we approve that.
I'll second it.
So any discussion, or want to move right to the roll call vote?
I'm all set.
Okay. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Myself, Jamie is yes.
Thank you. And the second one, I gotta wait for I have to fly out on my my screen. Okay. The second one is a special education transfer. And this is to, again, it's left pocket to right pocket. It's moving $65,481 from out-of-state tuition to non-public tuition for a student.
Matt, could you just, for the viewing audience and actually for our own education, could you a bit of a commentary on what is state special ed versus what is non-public special ed?
Okay, so out-of-state special education would be tuition paid to educational facilities outside of New Hampshire. And what we're doing is we're paying to tuition for a student to a non-public school entity within New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. So instead of paying for sending them across a border, which might have been what was planned and was budgeted, we're instead sending them within the border for an out of public facility use.
Out of school placement.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is all based upon their individual education plan or IEP. And what we're trying to do is move the budget to where the expenditure is going to get recorded, because they actually have to report to the Hampshire Department of Education tuition payments by these particular categories.
Okay. Can I get a motion on approval for this?
Your turn, Pete.
Hey, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Unless there's any discussion, let's move right to the roll call. Jim,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
myself, Jamie, yes.
I'm going to switch back to the agenda.
So on the agenda, the next item is the final year-end closing numbers. So last that we tracked this publicly, we were anticipating where we're going to end up at the end of the year. I believe the most recent, oh, there you go. Matt's got the sheet up. Could you scroll down, Matt? I believe in the bottom is what we had originally identified. The $2.3 million was what we were expecting after paying out the 75,000 for the for Article 9 and 50,000 for Article 10. So could you step us through this, Matt, as to where we are and getting this cleaned up?
Yep. And so basically, also, I want to add to that. This is also for the school board vote to set aside funds in the Contingency Fund. So this is the document that I handed out to the school board back in June as part of that vote for the Contingency Fund. And at the time, I had $387,000 for surplus revenue as a budget versus actual. Okay, I had unencumbered funds for healthcare of almost $400,000, and then I backed out the June healthcare costs, and had unencumbered funds for non-healthcare, 1.2 million. This is what was not spent at year end. And then I added back encumbrances that I was going to close out of 104,000. We were going to add back the bus company cost adjustment for $44,760, and that would be a total of just over $2 million. Then
could I just interrupt for a moment, Matt, just for clarification for anybody watching? That return of encumbrances is really constrained spending. We originally planned to and issued POs in encumbered funds, and then we chose to not execute against those PO, cancel those POs, and unencumbered the funds, and that's what Matt Angel was adding back in.
Yep. Then through some finance committee and facility committee meetings, we had some additional costs at year end that related to the middle school transition and some other projects we wanted to get done. And what we did is we categorized them either against current year spending, or we're going to push them off into other sources of financing, such as the capital reserve fund, the facility use revolving fund, or move it off into the next fiscal year. And so really what's in the left-hand column here was going to go against this $2 million. So we anticipated 365,147 of additional expenditures. Okay, that would bring us down to available funds of 1.6 million. That was going to, just from current operations, that would be going back to the taxpayers. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. 2 years ago, the school board set aside $400,000 in the contingency fund. Every year we need to update that amount. Actually, it was a year ago. At the annual district meeting back in March, the voters set aside $125,000 go into the unanticipated educational expense fund and also into the capital reserve fund for continued maintenance and improvements. So that meant that we had $2.3 million available for the board voted to set aside funds into the contingency fund. If I recall correctly, we could, the amount was above $1.8 million for that was going to be returned to the taxpayers. We were going to be able to max out the contingency fund. Otherwise, it was going to be set at, I believe it was 500,000. However, let me just kind of give you a quick update. I'm unable at this moment to give you exact numbers. We're still trying to close out the number.
Yeah, just a clarification. The motion was to set aside, I think it was 516, a maximum of 516,000, and the balance going back to the taxpayers.
Yep, that sounds right.
Okay.
So we have $2.3 million that we started out before that motion, and oh yeah, the year-end numbers right now, I'm having difficulties trying to pull them together because we need to clean up the system and close out encumbrances as part of that 400,000 that's up above. Right now, on my quick math, we're going to beat that 2.3 million, but I don't want to say how much at this point.
So at a 2.3 million number, roughly a 516, 518 kind of max withholding, that would say presently we're at about 1.8 million going back to taxpayers. And Matt, you're suggesting that it could be north of that based upon what you're seeing as you're winding up your calculations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So
And
go ahead, Jim.
and you expect to have these numbers on the 15th, or?
We are endeavoring as best as we can to get it done by September 15th.
Okay.
So I'll just to make a couple of comments around that. The 1.8 million, the way that would work when we say go back to the taxpayers, that would mean that it would impact taxpayers' December tax bills, correct?
That is correct.
There would be an adjustment in the December tax bills of 1.8 million based upon the mill rates and the value of the homes. There would be a reduction from what the July rate was based upon that 1.8 million or whatever north of that comes up that comes back. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So your tax rate for December is going to go down.
There's a caveat though, that's the school portion will go down.
That's a school portion, correct?
The towns spent a lot of money this year, so the net is yet to be determined.
Thank you.
Net
That's
result.
correct. Yep.
So my concern about Jamie's line of thinking is the tax rate is going to go down this December. There's a chance that it could go back up next year because we're not going to be turning back a significant amount of money next year. This year is just a fluke because of COVID. We were able to reduce our operating costs significantly, and which the taxpayers winter are going to see that windfall. We may not have that same opportunity next year.
Okay, you know, when you talk about the tax rate going to the school portion go down, all right, they're going to be setting the tax rate October, November. The town will, right? The state calls in, the selectmen sit down, and then they set the tax rate. I guess I'm a little confused about why the tax rate go down. We have to take the budget that we passed March, starts July 1st. So that tax rate is set, not the tax rate, that money is set. What you're saying is this, whatever we give back, let's just for the sake of argument say 2 million. I guess I'm confused when you say it'll go down. It'll be set. But
It's just money that has to be raised by taxes, Pete.
yeah, this $2 million has to be raised by taxes, but what did they pay down last year? That's what I'm saying.
I think it was
We paid down-
1.3.
The school portion, I see what you're saying, but the tax bill, what was the budget last year? It's
Went
35.
back to the taxpayers, I think was 1.3 last year.
So
Okay, so there's 1.3 of that 2 million right there that's going to balance off. You follow? You see what I'm saying?
So
The
Pete,
previous tax rate.
Right,
What
but
you're
we
gonna
paid
see-
down 1.3 million last year. We're paying, let's say, 2 million this year. That's 700,000. You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually paying it down by roughly 700,000. Or roughly, and I'm gonna go 50-50, it's a little bit different, but roughly 350,000 each town,
okay.
all right?
Kingston's more.
Yeah, so no, I'm just trying to get it right in my mind. So you're talking, you're talking about 20, well, anyway, okay, that's good. All right, I got it.
So let me just kind of recap a little bit about what Peter's saying for the general public. School districts can't retain funds like a town can. On a town side, the town can release, or the Board of Selectmen can release surplus funds at their discretion. School districts only retain up to the 2.5% that's been approved by the taxpayers previously. Anything above that 2.5% has to be returned back to the taxpayers as a reduction to the tax rate. The point that I am making is the amount that we had anticipated at June 30th, when the board voted to set aside that 2.5%, it's going to be a greater number. And when you're comparing the tax rate from this year to last year, you're going to see that the tax rate is going to go down. And it's going to go down mainly because our operations, we have curbed our operations so much because of COVID, we're able to return a lot of money back to the taxpayers. Does that explain it better?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just trying to get my numbers right in my head.
Okay.
And so what that would mean, if 516 to 518 is the cap of what can be retained, and we've covered that prior to anything north that Matt is seeing now, that will dollar for dollar, whatever that number comes out to be that's over this, that will dollar for dollar 100% go right back to a relief of school taxes for the December calculations.
That's correct.
And frankly, given what's going on with COVID in the community and the impact to people with childcare and with remote learning or what have you, there's not a better time to have that flow back. So that will be helpful. And then we still have 500,000 in that is held back to use in the future. So this is a good direction, Matt. So keep scrubbing the number, and we look forward to seeing what those numbers turn out to be at the next review meeting. Hopefully at the board meeting on the 16th. But that'd be very nice. These were looking to be quite nice numbers to begin with. If we're north of that, then that would be appreciated, not only by the finance committee and the board, but by the community also. That's been in a pretty tough situation these past number of months in terms of their own costs and their own incomes. Thank you.
Yep, great. I just put the agenda back up on the screen.
Yeah, so the next item we had was tracking the major year-end projects. So on the screen that we just saw, we had a number of items that we were using estimates for. And we had asked Matt can you provide us some information as regards how we make out? We said on all these, we had quotes. We said, this is what we expect to spend on these major projects. Where did we end up on? What was that spending against what we were anticipating?
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping in.
Yep.
I'm going to switch to the middle school. You remember the middle school transition plan that Superintendent Ambrose presented back in April of 2019? That plan was the source of all the, I want to say budget, but it was the expected costs in order to transition to the middle school. And I gotta find the right page on that plan. So we have one-time costs. And so basically it's on this page 12 of that transition plan. Okay. And now I'm going to switch to an Excel spreadsheet that I pulled together, discussing each of those pieces. So can you see this well enough on your screen?
I can't see the right side
You can't see the right side?
because our pictures are in the way.
All right. What I'll do is I will start off, I'll zoom in a little bit more, and then I'll move it over to the right-hand side.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. I was able to pick the whole thing up on my screen. It must be a screen resolution.
Oh, yeah, it must be my screen size.
Oh, I got the same thing.
Okay.
So what I did is I listed over here on the left-hand side all the different projects that was listed in the presentation, and then I put in the first column with on the left for numbers. I put in the estimated costs as per that presentation. So we're estimating $720,000 to do the middle school transition. So what I did is I reclassified between the different line items to line up the presentation to the actual project costs. So and then when we move over here to the right-hand side, these are the projects by contract. So for the middle school vestibule and office, it cost us $209,116, and we anticipated $152,000 for that project. So we went over by $56,000, mainly because there's the firewall was cantilevered, and we need to put in a footing, and then we had to sandwich the wall with steel reinforcement in case of an earthquake.
Before you move on, I'd like to point out the difference in architectural fees. If you look at the middle school charge of almost 150 and the architect's fee of 23.6, almost 23.7, that's 15.8% of the project. If you look at the one for the middle school bathrooms and locker rooms, the 14,000 on a 220,000, that's only 6.36% of the project. I don't recall how we ended up with port one for that middle school entrance.
Because that they came with the builder.
With the builder, okay.
Yeah, because remember, I only had like 7 or 14 days to pull that project together in order to line the funding up in the fiscal years correctly. So the best smoothing effect on the tax rate.
Yeah, because the other one, the CMK, is the one we took proposals from a bunch of architects and picked them as the one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So really,
that was embedded in the Points North quote, if I recall, right? So
no
Oh,
points. CMK.
Oh, it was the electrical. some
Right.
of these
Yeah.
Didn't it
contracts.
have to do with permitting? What we had to do to get permits?
Well, no, what we need to do is hire our own architects so that they work for us, as
Right,
working for the builder.
right. Okay,
So for the middle school locker rooms and the middle school bathroom and locker rooms, it was we spent $234,221, but we had estimated the project at $448,000. Okay, and the reason why there's such a large drop in actual cost to estimated cost is because we did a change of scope for the locker rooms. The locker rooms in the original plan, we were anticipating converting existing classroom space into the middle school locker rooms. We were actually able to add just a couple of doors and convert team locker rooms into the middle school locker room space. And that saved a huge amount of money.
great.
The middle school corridor doors, I don't have a dollar amount in there yet because that project hasn't been completed yet. The middle school moving fees, and this is just for middle school only. I have to let you know that we also hired the same moving company to move the elementary schools, and I'll jump into that in a second. But just to move the middle school alone was $20,434. And for that is for the Superintendent Ambrose presentation was $42,831. The estimate by $22,397. Now moving to the phone system.
So Matt, quick question. On that right-hand column where it says under over budget, the
Yes.
ones in brackets, those are where we came in over budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Okay. So for the phone system, right now we're at $52,958. We had two vendors who actually submitted proposals, and the actual cost of the system is $32,958 over our estimate for Superintendent Ambrose's presentation. Conversion of the book room to a classroom, I don't have the complete supply list for that yet. We're actually going to be, we have to convert the storage room to classroom space because we need the space. And we're trying to change the scope of this particular project so that we're reducing the costs. So that cost is still out right now.
I just want to remind everyone that the conversion of the book room to a classroom was not a part of the original plan. It came up later, but it's an impact of the middle school moving in. It will be really helpful. The original plan also, I just want to give some credit to where it's due. The large savings on the middle school bathroom locker room situation was due to Mr. Stack had a creative idea to use some already existing space, which stopped us from having to convert a classroom to a locker room. It was a really good idea. So I just want to put that back out there, you know, goodwill where goodwill's due. Thanks for thinking creatively. It really saved us a lot of money.
Yep.
Okay, so for the next one is signage. Right now we're up to $18,836 for signage. This is signage with inside the building and also all the parking lot signage. We anticipated $4,000, so we're going to be over by almost $15,000. The next one, which is an unanticipated project as compared to the transition plan, would be the parking lot improvements, where we added in a parent loop and also seal coated and line striped the parking lot. That's also part of the maintenance that we should be normally doing, but I'm adding it to this project, and that was $65,279. I'm adding it really for a worst case scenario when comparing our initial estimates to actual. When we look at the total cost, right now we're up to $600,844, and we are under our estimate by $119,743. I don't believe that completing the middle school corridors or the converting of the room is really going to amount to much. It may be 15,000, but we're still going to be under our initial estimate by $100,000.
Do you recall why the phone costs were so much higher?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank right now.
No, we went with we had vendors come in. I know the answer, so I'll help Matt.
Okay,
Remember we had the vendors come in. This was all in the middle of COVID, right when it hit. We had vendors come in. We had a bunch of different proposals, and the effectiveness of the phone system that we went with, we felt was way better than what we originally anticipated. And if I remember correctly, we the phone for the high school, the system. I know the high school is a very nice, beautiful building, but it's things are starting to go out of date. I mean, it's getting older. And the phone system, we replaced the entire phone system, not just the middle school. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, and we had to bring it up to code too.
And we had to bring it up to code so that when we call 911, the fire company, the fire folks get the exact room where the fire is instead of just a call from the school facility. So we had a lot of conversation about it, but I know it feels like a million years ago. So I just wanted to remind everyone that that was a process that we went through with everybody involved.
So this is the high school and the new middle school.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
we did a lot more than what we planned on in the original budget, Jim. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the original phone system for the general public, it couldn't accommodate two different schools. So it couldn't deal with two switchboards. This new system will allow for that.
And signage, Matt, the main driver on the signage?
It's having to change all the escape plans that go up on the walls, all the exterior signs. So it says, one says middle school over the door, the other one says high school over the door. The sign out in front of the building where we're having to take off high school and then make room and say middle school / high school. And then also because we're changing the parent parking, the parent loop to accommodate the additional parents driving into the facility, it's going to be the street signs that that the parents have to follow.
So does this include installation of the signs? Or are we doing that with our own people?
The street signs, we're doing that ourselves. The interior signs, that's going to be done by the company developing the signs themselves.
Do you know what portion of that is the cost?
The labor involved in our labor is not in this estimate.
Right, but the portion of the cost, the 18,000, whatever it is, what portion of that is for the installation of the interior signs?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have that broken out. I can find it out.
Was there a reason why we elected not to do that ourselves?
No,
Okay.
but I can certainly look at it.
All right.
Write it down.
I just want to mention, I think that's a really good idea, Jim. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we can save some money, there's no reason why we can't install those ourselves. So I think it's a great idea.
So just in summary on this list, the parking said was not originally included. Even with the parking added in, we have a net 15% reduction in the estimate from where we were. If you take the parking out and say that was just a year-end project that was not part of this, you would be a 185 delta on a 702 number. You'd be close to 25% lower than the original estimates. And many of those estimates were predicated upon initial preliminary quotes. So to Tom's point, the change in scope is the main driver. We weren't too far off from our estimates. A change in scope that Brian came really was what made the difference. And our estimates were fairly accurate, absent that change in scope. So I just wanted to point that out as to kind of a level of change this is. But an overall project still coming 15% below when absorbing a big ticket item that wasn't originally anticipated is a nice job in a busy time frame. So I appreciate all the work of everybody that went into making that happen. Clearly, the taxpayers are thankful for that also.
I want to thank Matt, and I want to thank you guys too, though. I mean, we all have worked really hard, and we're way ahead of the timeline. Things just went incredibly smooth, and I just think it's been a team effort. So I just want to publicly thank Matt. I want to thank the principals, Christine and Brian, that worked really hard, and Ryan McCluskey, Chris Snyder, in getting everyone moved around. It is just the middle school construction that we're talking about, but really, sincerely, if it wasn't for COVID-19, we'd be having a really smooth, very exciting start to the school year. We were really looking forward to focusing on teaching and learning this fall. So it's a bittersweet feeling to have everything ready to go, and can't wait to get the kids in the buildings, It's really great. Feels great to have this done. What a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I met Jim 3 years ago, I didn't know where the money was going, but boy, we've really figured it out, and we're getting it focused on kids.
Right.
And that's what I like. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Matt, could you pop that agenda again, please?
Sure.
So the next item was so there's 3 areas that we had looked at originally at the committee to understand better the costs associated with the programs and then what overall programs that we're working towards. One was IT, one was athletic, special education. And I know that there's new folks in the IT in the athletic area that are doing some assessments, and I know Ms. Gutterman has been very active on the special education side. So Matt, did you have a chance to pull any of that together? Really looking for kind of getting a breakout. What's the total dollar numbers in these, and what kind of programs do they support? And then maybe some further information and commentary from the people that are reviewing or controlling those areas as to needs, how are they being met, and how they view the costs. Do you have any updates on those, Matt?
Yeah.
I have little bits and pieces of information that I can share right now. For IT, I know Gordon is working on evaluating all of the equipment, and with some purchases that we've done in the last couple of months, we're trying to strategically place the district into like a 4-year rotating plan for teachers' laptops. And also, we did a huge Chromebooks. I believe it was 400 of them. Now, he's also, from what I observed, he's also trying to reduce the equipment footprint on the network, where he's consolidating servers and switches to try to speed up the network.
Okay.
He's also doing an evaluation of online subscriptions. These would be programs where the students would access resources online, and coming up with dollar costs for those as well. I know one of your questions is trying to align usage to the actual item. We're still trying to look at that as to whether we can accomplish that task. Now,
for just for the edification of those that might be watching, we spend an awful lot of money on a myriad of different online programs, and the request was, what is the usage? If we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a subscriptions and we're generating very few clicks and there's not a lot of people using it, then that begs a question as to why are we spending that money on that subscription? And or what are the lists of these subscriptions that we have? What is the usage level? And is that the most effective and efficient means of providing that type of information? So that's part of this evaluation that we're looking to understand how those dollars are spent as part of the IT assessment and review.
All right. Athletics. I know that Mr. Dawson is looking at the athletic program. I don't really have much specifics in that because there's so much going on with COVID. It's changing athletics daily. Special education, same thing.
Can I just say about the athletics real quick? So part of this process for athletics, special education, technology, and Matt's going to work on custodians as well in the custodial services and grounds and whatnot. All four of those departments really are going to get a major look before the budget presentation on November 1st. So I just want the public and the finance committee to know that we are looking at those areas, and we do anticipate having more information in the budget presentation on November 1st. But if you can imagine, poor Gordon's running around trying to get computers to everybody right now. So budget's not a priority for him at the moment, in the sense that it's a priority to make sure he can cover the costs of where we're at with remote learning. Bob's just trying to handle the complex nature of sports, but he's already started auditing all of the supplies and items that have been left over from his predecessor. And I'm sure that he's going to make recommendations about the budget, but it's going to be an odd year this year because transportation is so expensive for any part of our program. So transportation for the SST that's open next week is going to be very expensive because of the number of students, the limited number of students who can take the bus. Transportation's a big problem. And then for Jody, that transportation is going to fall into her program. But I've asked them to audit it for what a normal year would be so that we can plan a budget for the following year, right? So Jody's program, the audit is going to be a longer process than any of the other ones because we really need to look at the special ed program and its relationship to regular academics. The goal of special ed is to support regular ed academics. And with regular ed academics changing every time we turn around with COVID, it makes it really hard for her to do that. But we're going to look at data and make decisions. I just want everyone to know that the special ed part is probably going to be a real year-long process, a real audit. It's going to take time. But there's budget items that are just in the budget that we can look at, like, the typical part of budgeting for special ed, which is, year to year, annual, what is this for? What is that for? That type of stuff we can do now. But the big program audit, a full program audit, is really what I'm looking at as the superintendent once we get through this very interesting situation we're in right now.
I made a note of that on the custodian, Tom. So I'll keep that in my notes also. But all of these are big ticket items. All of them will be reviewed and assessed, and I'm sure that pulling some of the data sets together that we're looking for will be the same activities that will be part of the budget. So part of that budget information will be breaking these things down for us in the details so that we could really dig into that.
Yeah, 3 of them are easy. It's just with special ed, there's a bigger philosophical student growth related conversation that needs to occur, but they're linked, and it's impossible to do the full-blown audit until we're back in person. So I just want to keep expectations on that one. There's budgeting, and then there's the audit, and the audit is a separate, bigger process, right? So I really want to work with Jody and the Patty to look at special ed from a with the end in mind. If our end goal is to have students make a year or a year and a half's progress, what do we need to have to make that happen? Not this is the way it's always been done, so that's how we're going to do it. So we're talking about a major, revisioning of our special ed program, but the basic finances of it, Jody's really great at. So if you ever want to invite her to a meeting, she would be happy to come and talk to you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Anything further on that list, Matt?
No. Aaron stopped during this. And I'm gonna,
Jim or Pete, any comments on the list?
Well,
All set? So that's the end of the preset agenda items. Is there anything that was missed or questions on those items from Jim or Pete that you have not had a chance to ask as of yet?
I'm all set.
I'm all set.
Okay. If you have any things that you would like included or you think about between now and the next meeting, please let me know and we can make sure to include those on the agenda. Matt will, in the meantime, be getting that money stolen for the 2 articles and get those into the different trust funds and get the information up to date on the facilities use fund. Once he can pull that information out, and then we're anxious to see Matt at the board meeting on the 16th, what those final numbers are for the closeout of the year and what that will mean. We will see in terms of what is going to be returned to the taxpayers. Clearly, that would be something of great interest, not only to the full board, but also to the community. Tom, Matt, anything to add before we wrap up?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, then we are hereby adjourned.